Good afternoon, everyone. This is the meeting of the Benefits and Services Committee, January the 9th. Will you please call the roll?
For the Director of Finance, Ms. Whitaker.
Present.
Mr. Tang.
Here.
Ms. Bradford.
Here.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Ruffino.
Present.
Chairperson Yamamoto, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Have a statement.
Of course, please.
The CalSTRS board meetings are live web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific agenda item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there is not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organizations may be provided, but other personal identifying information such as their last name, age, or school may not be shared.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to item number 1, the approval of the committee agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. Do I take a vote?
Without objection.
Without objection. Let's go for it. All right. Any public comment on that?
No public comment on this item.
Thank you. Okay, let's go to number 2, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is that okay? Okay. Okay, now we're on to item number 3, customer experience update. Okay. Kate LeBlanc is on her way. Jennifer Hall. Great. Good afternoon, ladies.
Hello. Good
All right.
afternoon. There, members of the committee, good to see you. Kate LeBlanc, Director of Retirement Readiness. With me today is Jennifer Hall, and I believe joining us virtually is Maxwell Franklin. They're our partners from Accenture. They're joining me to present on our customer experience initiative, which is part of our strategic plan. We've been engaged in this project for nearly a year and now want to present to you some of our results so far and our next steps.
Okay, thank you.
So we're going to go through some of the background of why this initiative is something we wanted to embark on, where we are in our journey, some of the findings of the maturity assessment that Accenture conducted with us and the opportunities that they've identified for us, and then those next steps. So starting out, I'd like to set a foundation so we all have a shared understanding of this term, customer experience, or as I'm going to continue to refer to it, CX. And CX is a little different from what we already know that we excel at, which is customer service. So customer service is part of CX. It's a component of it. Customer service is how we assist and support our members when they come to us with a question or they have an appointment with us, they need us to help them solve a problem. So that's us kind of reacting to a customer individual interactions and transactions. And customer experience is more holistic, all-encompassing. It's based on the totality of all of those interactions, but it's also more than that. It's also their perceptions of CalSTRS based on maybe our branding. Maybe it's also things that they've heard from others who have interacted with us. Maybe it's influenced by the actual benefits that we provide or the way that we communicate with them. So, and the ways that we can influence CX are more holistic. It's beyond just those individual interactions. It's how we reach out to them and we're proactive. So CX, customer service is one interaction, and CX is kind of the sum of them all and a little bit more than that. So for us as a pension system, and we all know from our mission, we're focused on building trust with our members who are entrusting a significant portion of their financial future with us. And so for CX, we really want to think about constantly and recognize that members, when they're coming to us, it's often at milestone moments in their lives, and when they're reaching out to us, it's at a range of different emotional spectrums. So some members, when they're ready to retire, are joyful and fully enthusiastic and prepared for retirement. Others are more uncertain about the process or maybe trying to evaluate if that's the right time for them. Others might not be aware or ready to confront the decisions involved in it or thinking about decisions about their own death and some of those things that might be more challenging. And then we know survivors and beneficiaries engage with us at really vulnerable moments of grief. So every interaction and all of our materials and the way that we design our processes can really represent a promise kept on the lifelong relationship with our members and establish some confidence that we're there to support them today and consistently. So there's really a lot of opportunity for us to have a meaningful impact for our members, but equal opportunity, maybe more, to really miss if we don't get it right. And that said, we know that the system and the laws that govern it can be complex and challenging for some members to engage with. So what do people do? If you don't have to deal with that stuff right now, if you're not having an active issue with us, you just probably avoid it. And that's what we don't want. And this is an issue not unique to CalSTRS, but the industry as a whole, financial planning industry as a whole. And then in terms of early engagement, we know that one of the most meaningful impacts we can have on readiness for retirement is that if we do effective outreach that inspires an educator earlier or mid in their career to invest in a low-cost defined contribution vehicle that results in some more secure supplemental savings to augment their income into retirement, that helps with the outcome that we want to avoid, which is hearing members say, when they do come to us later in their career, which is, I wish I knew that earlier. And we hear that more than we want to today. And that's, also influenced by the larger issue of just human behavior that we all engage in sometimes, of just putting off something that we know is good for our future health, but maybe not the most fun or satisfying thing to do in the present, like retirement planning or reading about 403B fee structure. But if there were a way that we could make it fun or more visible to them, or some way that we could think about it that catches teachers' attention earlier in their career, that's part of why we want to think about CX more broadly and in a different, maybe more innovative way. And that leads to another concept that I want to emphasize about CX, which is that we view customers very broadly. Obviously, members are at the core of what we do. They're central to our mission and all of the work and processes and communications that we provide, but there are many other groups that are part of CX. You'll hear after this from Jeff Zimmer and Joycelyn about credible compensation and the great work done to advance that on AB 1667. And a lot of the focus about that is on employers. But during an internal workshop about CX that we conducted, our COO, Lisa Blatnick, made a very accurate observation that this is a great example of CX. Making service credit reporting for employers simpler, making it easier for employers to get it right the first time, means fewer adjustments to member benefits. It means efficiencies for CalSTRS staff to focus on impactful enhancements for members. So the more that we support employers and look for these kind of opportunities, it has an effect on that member experience overall. It has a full circle impact. And that's the same for our partnerships with stakeholders, how we support our internal staff who might not be frontline customer facing. It's part of this larger ecosystem. So this slide is, why are we looking at CX at all as an organization? Probably that might be clear from everything that I've just said, but as one point of clarity, I know that we've presented to this governing body many times on our customer satisfaction scores, which are extremely high for our point of service surveys. So when customers call our contact center, on average, 98% of them indicate extreme satisfaction. And that's true across other point of service surveys for individual processes as well. But we also conduct our annual members survey, and some of the more general esoteric questions about trust and how do we feel about CalSTRS as an organization, we've seen more opportunity there from our membership. So this is why we're spending some effort kind of thinking bigger. And we've brought in Accenture as a leader in CX strategy consulting to give us an objective third-party assessment of where we are now in terms of our position in CX, and assist us in developing some initial tools and resources and design ideal next steps with us for as an organization. So next up, I'm going to pass it to Jen to talk about the work that we've been conducting since March.
Thank you, Kate. So if you think about customer experience, it's not just informed by their interactions with CalSTRS. People's experiences are also informed by outside influencers. So you think about if you've ever used the Starbucks app and you go to buy a coffee and you can have it ready to go and done just as you want, you now have an expectation, well, why can't so-and-so also provide me that level of service? It's not, CalSTRS does not see Starbucks as a competitor, but like it or not, those kind of experiences are competitors because it introduces that into the ecosystem. So if you think about why customer experience is important, it's because that's informing your members and what your members have. And, particularly the generations that are coming up are going to have a really different mentality and expectation for how they interact with organizations like CalSTRS. So when we started this work, we first started to say, well, where are we today? How do we measure up against others? How do we measure up against best practice leaders in other parts of the ecosystem? And where are we doing it well? We looked at this maturity assessment. We created tools that we're using with customer experience profiles and journey maps. And then we collaborated with the leadership team in workshops to figure out where should we focus? Where should we get started? Where are suggestions for improvement? Now in the final phase of this initiative, we're in the process of sharing out our customer experience recommendations with CalSTRS to outline the next steps for enhancing the customer experience throughout the organization. 2 slides here, thank you. So when we first started the project, the first step was to make sure that we align the teams by creating a shared vision. And as we move through the presentation, you'll notice recurring themes and phrases that highlight how central this vision has been to the project and to what matters most to CalSTRS. This vision is designed to be aspirational, that provides a clear goal to strive for. And we also, alongside it, developed guiding principles that would apply to the processes and the work related to customer experience. And additionally, it was very important that we made sure that the customer experience vision and the existing CalSTRS vision were perfectly aligned so that the progress in one provides the support for the progress in other. I'll let you take a moment just to react to this slide and take a look at it, and then we'll move on. So now I'm going to share a little bit about the process and how we gathered this insight and how we pulled in these different pieces of information. Our process was predicated on direct participation from a diverse group of members. And just to break down the slide a bit, in the blue boxes, you'll see what information we gathered. And on the right, on the output side, you'll see what evolved from that research. We used a mix of research methodologies, including one-on-one interviews, surveys, direct observations of group learning sessions at different member service center organizations, as well as expert review and comparative analysis of digital design and experiences for members. We included members at different stages in their career across diverse geographies and districts, and with perspectives from beneficiaries and survivors, in addition to active employees and retirees. This approach really, we think, helped us to understand the lived experience of CalSTRS customers, their pain points, their unmet needs, and without biased or assumptive decision-making in the documentation of customer journeys, really capturing the as-is as we watched it unfold, rather than hearing second or third hand how something had evolved. The significant progress has been made so far, with benchmarking being conducted across 9 organizations throughout the US. And our next slide will share the key findings specifically tailored to CalSTRS. First, we want to recognize that CalSTRS has already built an exceptional culture of service. Knowledgeable and mission-oriented staff who truly care and continue to evolve to make the member-facing or the customer-facing part of the business exceptional. The evidence of this high quality of customer service is reflected in consistently high-scoring customer SAT scores for point-of-service interactions. What we did see is that to make the most of our existing partnerships, we need to focusing them where they already exist. Kate mentioned one of the examples about the employers and having that connection at the point, meeting the members where they are today and strengthening that. That's an opportunity for them. And as leadership changes, maintaining these connections requires being very intentional about how you conduct this ongoing. It's really important to make sure that those partnerships and where people are today are really embraced and brought in and are part of the team. And that's why, again, when you're thinking about the experience, their experience and how the partners interact with CalSTRS are almost as important as the member experience, because they are sometimes the ones being the channel for communications between the entities. So we look forward to seeing these opportunities for strengthened customer experience that Benefit Connect will deliver, and those opportunities that we saw the great progress that the team has made today, and we look forward to being able to take advantage of some of these new efficiencies and capabilities with that programming. This is intended to be a long-term point of focus for the organization. It's one of our recommendations as well. The other concept that we think will create really excellent value, tremendous value for the members is a focused effort to provide simplified content when and whenever possible. Really thinking about communicating things in plain language, or you might have heard it, weekend language, something that's easy to consume, easy to understand, and know what you need to do when, how, and where. So this includes concepts about financial planning, really making it, understanding why it's better to start earlier, making that easy to understand, and then to create that urge and the impetus to take action. Lastly, a more refined approach to utilizing customer data like behavioral analytics, preferences, and member profile attributes will create a more personalized and relevant member experience in the future. So where we are right now, we are going to be, we're finalizing the recommendations that we'll be providing to the team, and they're going to be able to determine when and where they take action. On to you.
Thank you. So this slide talks through some of the deliverables that we're going to be finalizing in the next couple of months. So we're working on some quick win opportunities. So those are some of the insights from the work that we've conducted that we've identified as high impact and lower effort. And what we're really looking for are opportunities that we can implement and initiate by embedding in existing processes or existing initiatives. And it's kind of perfect timing, as you saw the strategic plan is nearing finalization. So as we've been going through that development process, we've been embedding that customer experience focus into those initiatives that we've been developing in the strategic plan. So this designing communication strategy, in addition to some of the focuses, we're embedding customer experience learnings and tools and resources as part of that, as well as developing a playbook. So there's ways that we're looking to minimize additional change, additional resourcing around CX, and we're uniquely perhaps positioned to do this because we have such a strong customer focus already as part of our mission-driven focus as an organization, and this baseline already that we know that we're operating from. So those are our next steps, and it's a nice place to start from in terms of being at the precipice of the next 3 years of the strategic plan at this next implementation and act phase. So with that, we're ready for questions or comments from the committee.
Any questions, committee?
That was a lot.
Yeah, that was a lot. It was like fun. No questions? Okay, can't wait to see the next steps and more recommendations coming out and seeing what's going to happen next. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Any public comment? Sorry.
There are no members of the public in the queue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey. Good thing I have good ears to hear that. Okay, next let's go on to item number 4, AB 1997, changes to credible compensation. Looks like we have Jeff Zimmer and Joycelyn Martinez-Wade. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you as well. So I'm Jeff Zimmer, the Director of Employer Services, and I'm very excited to be here today to share some details about the changes related to our creditable compensation simplification legislation, also known as AB 1997. This doesn't happen without the board's approval for the legislation to go forward, without our executive team being supportive and giving us the freedom to be innovative and make meaningful change. It doesn't happen without our stakeholders giving us input and insight about how these things impact them and how we can refine it to meet their needs. And it certainly doesn't happen without the team from governmental relations and employer services whose dedication and stewardship made this possible. So what is this? And why did we do it? So the main reason is we want to address the complexity around creditable compensation reporting. We had some very direct and open conversations with our stakeholders about this, notably our employer partners who want to do the right thing to report accurately for our members, but are sometimes hindered by, again, the complexity around the rules that we have. So they clearly advocated for a more sustainable approach. So we came up with something that we thought we could address those concerns. And what we had to do first call was to our friends, the actuaries, and said, we've got some ideas. What did we just break? We didn't want to do anything that harmed the intent of the plan or that potentially jeopardized the full funding efforts. So getting that approval, we wouldn't be here without it. So good, we crossed that. And we also knew we wanted to maintain benefits for members and not make any material changes to what they can expect for their benefits after this legislation. So we came up with some concepts that ultimately became AB 1997. What we wanted to realize are significant benefits. And you see there's only 2 points. These are massively important things. Accurate reporting and all of the benefits we realize from more accurate reporting, these are existential objectives. These are things that absolutely must occur. These are things we think about all the time and risks that we need to mitigate and improvements we want to make. So these are very, very large improvements and benefits that we're hoping to realize. So now we'll get into the details about how we hope to realize them, and I'll pass it to Joycelyn for what I think is the most elegant design of the concept. It's certainly my favorite, but Joycelyn will give you a little more details about it.
And I'll just add on to the past points that I think the member groups really were benefiting from that. I know they probably had one item on that last the second bullet on the last slide about reporting, well, it's benefit adjustments really. The reporting corrections come from the employers, but those benefit adjustments, as you all know, and with AB 1667 can be quite jarring. And so there's a huge piece there too to help simplify things so that they understand whether it's individually a bit more or through their representation and their membership groups and things like that. So they know what's going into their benefit is clear. And then we don't see fewer changes later on. But yes, 3 pay types. This is what we were aiming for. And I wanted to take this slide and kind of take it from a plan design perspective where we have these 3 pay types that are similar for now both groups, 2 at 60 and 2 at 62 members, and all compensation, should fit into one of these 3 categories as long as it's not otherwise prohibited by law. There's a list of those things in the statute. And all of these are credited to the defined benefit program. But I wanted to make note, you can see how they're grouped, that salary and special pay, those are going to be used to determine compensation earnable and final compensation. And so this is the compensation that affects a member's defined benefit calculation in the final comp section of that. And so this is, by aligning all of this, this is part of the elegance of it, is that only these pay types and the annualized pay rate associated with salary, that's what's going to give you your final compensation. And it'll be very clear. And then all of these pay types, all 3 can create service credit, which is another piece of that formula. But supplemental pay will not affect final compensation. And what that does for us is it makes sure that we are actuarially sound, because again, final comp is only based on that ongoing pay and base pay, salary and special pay, and that we may get more service credit, but anything else that's going on with supplemental pay isn't going to shift that, even if it creates more service credit. It also keeps us in line with the Public Employees Pension Reform Act. So we have that ability here to stay within those parameters. And then with everything else in supplemental pay, if it's used to create additional service credit in DB, it stays there. If there's additional supplemental pay, contributions on that will move to the defined benefit supplement program and increase that benefit for members. So I'll stop there, and Jeff's going to get more into the details of each bucket, but I wanted to lay out that framework for you.
Thank you, Joyce. Any questions so far?
Questions so far? Just to clarify that the salary 1 and 2 are the DB and the number 3 is DBS.
They all go to DB to begin with.
Right,
And then if there's less than a year of service credit, supplemental pay can fill that in.
right.
And then any additional supplemental pay that still is there, and more than a year of service credit, then that contributions on that will go to DBS.
Right, because we use those acronyms a lot, so I just wanted to make sure because it's not anywhere here.
Right.
So I just wanted
Because
to,
it depends on some of those factors.
Definitely. But a great question, and hold that hot for DBS.
okay.
So these are the changes that Joycelyn mentioned. All creditable compensation fits in one of those 3 categories. We've streamlined the rules for 2% at 60 and 62. That is one of our top audit findings, where employers inadvertently report something to 2% at 62 that shouldn't have been reported at all. And that's very common because it's a little bit confusing sometimes. And like Joycelyn said, the contributions for service in excess of 1 year will stay in DBS, but employers will still receive their excess contributions. And that is a very administratively burdensome situation for employers. We've heard that for years, that they receive these excess contributions for the members, they get theirs, but then they also have to find the members and then distribute sometimes very small amounts of money back to the members. So the employers won't have to do that kind of search and locate activity anymore, but they'll still get their excess contributions back. So the benefits of this is it reduces the number of analysis points. So we kind of created a mock algorithm of what the current rules look like. And there are nearly 20 decision points for an employer to make about where to report and what to report. And that is a lot. So now the rules, well, in July 1st, 2027, the rules will be easier for everyone to understand. And we mean that to employers, to members, and for stakeholder advocates, for member advocates. So salary, the kind of high-level requirements of salary is that it has to be paid to a position subject to membership. I'll explain that later. Paid in accordance with a publicly available pay schedule, more clarity about the documentation that we require, which helps a lot later on when everybody has a clear expectation of what things are. These pay schedules will make it more defined and clear. Paid to all persons in the same class of employees, similar to today, and not paid a limited number of times. It's ongoing, it's salary. Kind of just a reasonable expectation of what salary is, that's what it is. Special pay has the same requirements in terms of documentation, generally. And it's similar to what we call special comp today, special compensation today. And examples are pay for education, master stipend, or longevity for experience. Some examples of that. So supplemental pay, like Joycelyn said, is everything else. It's everything else. Something that's not paid, that's paid a limited number of times. You can think back to, don't want to go there again, but post-COVID, when there were learning loss funds available to employers, stipends they would give to people for learning how to teach online classes, those were sometimes not reportable or creditable for 2% at 62 members. Now they would be. Again, let's not go there again, but there are types of things that weren't creditable at all that would be creditable now. And Karen, to your point, most of the time, if someone is working a full-time contract, that will go to DBS. And just a shout out to DBS because it is a great program. It gets a very competitive fixed income rate, a fixed interest rate. And then historically, the board has approved additional earnings credit on top of that, averaging 4 to 5% a year. In 2021, it was 12%. This is a really nice investment vehicle. And I think now that there may be more of the members' contributions going to DBS, it's an opportunity to spotlight that and highlight that a little bit more as a valuable piece of the overall benefit program. The rules, again, a top audit finding is misreporting something for 2% at 62 that shouldn't have been reported. So these streamline the rules. There are still differences that adhere to PEPRA, like Joycelyn says, about the thresholds and the benefit formula and compensation limits. So that we still adhere to PEPRA, but it does simplify this a lot for the employers about who do I report this to? Now it's a lot simpler. So this was a big goal of this and something that took a lot of legislative effort and work by Joycelyn and her team to really explain this so that people understood that it would impact PEPRA. So finally, position subject to membership is new. So position subject to membership currently there are 9 creditable service activities. And someone must be performing one of those or more of those duties to be creditable for the compensation for that duty to be creditable to CalSTRS. Reasonable people can disagree about what those duties are and how they fit into the 9 categories. So this is an attempt to move it farther upstream and give employers more control over what a position subject to membership is. And that's someone with a credential or certificate or license or part of a certificated bargaining unit. So it gives more clarity about what a position subject to membership is and removes the subjectivity of those 9 service activities. So in the documentation, how to establish the position subject to membership, also important for the reasons I stated before about pay schedules and making more things documented and clear in the beginning so we all know what to expect. So kind of working backwards from here, because position subject to membership is where it all starts. And I mentioned there were almost 20 analysis points in our current rules. We're down to 5. Are you in a position subject to membership? Is the compensation prohibited? If not, it doesn't go anywhere. If it isn't, does it meet the requirements of base pay? And that was what we talked about before. Is it on a publicly available pay schedule, paid to all class of employees? It's ongoing. Then it's either special pay or salary. If it isn't, supplemental pay. That's it. And I'm oversimplifying a little bit because we have to clarify and put some detail into regulations, which I'll talk about. But that's the basic equation now. And it's much easier to understand. And that's why we want to reach out and make sure that employers understand it, of course, but tell members about it, and of course, all of their exclusive representatives and their advocates as well. Any questions so far before I get into next steps, what we're doing now?
No one's in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Months before the governor signed this, the team working on the legislation was already talking with Pension Solution, with Anthony and Jennifer, and talking about what changes do we have to make to the system to comply with this legislation. Again, July 1st, 2027 is when it will be effective. No sooner than that. So, no later than that. Thank you. So we know we need to make changes to the system. And this is a big deal because this will be the first legislative modification to the system post-go live. And we wanted to plan for it well in advance. That's why we're talking to them now and the developers and everything. And we want to make sure that there is a readiness environment like the employers have currently to test reporting with these new rules using the new system before it is effective that summer. So we want a long runway for the employers to get used to it. So a lot of that is happening and a lot of conversations and costing around what that will entail. Regulations, the board gave approval to pursue regulations to clarify some of these rules. So Joycelyn and her team, along with stakeholders across CalSTRS, are working on that now, along with stakeholders external to CalSTRS. And then training. We have a lot of investment in our training right now. We do a good job of getting out to the employers, giving them what they need in person, online, whatever they need, we are there to provide it to them. We have to update the entire training curriculum.
Right.
Everything. On the one hand, that's daunting because we're starting from zero. On the other hand, everybody's starting on the ground floor. We're all starting from zero at the same time. So we have an opportunity to again, speak to unions, to speak to employers, to speak to members, and make this clear for everyone all at once. We're all going to be starting at the same point. And that's that last point about stakeholder education and outreach is, again, this isn't just employer training. This is ensuring that unions understand what the rules are because they can effectively negotiate and effectively know what's going to be pensionable and included in someone's benefit via DB or DBS later on in their career. So it is clear and outlined up front to, again, hopefully reduce the risk of an audit or an adjustment later on. So, and there's a member component too, so they know what their unions are advocating for them. So they understand what the benefit program is. And again, an opportunity to kind of highlight the potential of more DBS balances, creating a little bit of an extra benefit when they retire, should they have compensation that rolls to DBS. This is an opportunity there.
So with respect to training, is your plan to do training with like a pilot program with a few employers, or
what we've been doing,
start off that way?
We've had excellent engagement with employer stakeholders now through all of the legislative process, and we'll use them in the regulatory process as well. So we have a core group of people that understand it very well already. So they'll be our pilot group. Is like, okay, we're going to develop training. Is this how you understand it? How can we modify it? So we will do that, and then we'll probably start reaching out to our major employers like Los Angeles County of Education, San Diego, Riverside. I mean, our big Sacramento County, the big employers that we have that submit most of our contribution lines. Those will be our audience first, and if it works for them, it's going to work for everyone. So there's definitely a rollout, and staff are already planning what the communication plan looks like, what our channels are, who our audiences will be, and then of course the training, how we redevelop the curriculum, and how we roll it out to people, and the methods in which we will do that. But largely it will be in person, and it will be very intense because we want to make sure everyone understands these rules completely when they start.
And then the charter schools are always involved in that too.
Yes.
Okay, Ken?
I was just curious, can we,
Hang on.
I was curious, our district?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take unions, I'll take districts, whoever wants to learn about it. Like we want to shout this from the rooftops. So absolutely.
No? Wow, this sounds really good.
We think so, too.
Good. Lots of work has gone into it, and look forward to the regulations that are about to come. Do we know what meeting that will be presented to us?
We are working toward trying to get those to you at the March meeting. We definitely want to get feedback from our external stakeholder partners in it. And so if feedback comes back that we need to work through, it may delay us a little bit, but we are aiming for March.
Target month is March.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment for this item.
Did it. Okay, all right. The next item is the review of information requests. I didn't really hear any. No? No? Okay. Do I have to have public comment on that? No. Okay, a draft for the next meeting.
Yeah, there's just a couple things that I think are interesting. Someone from Employer Services will be coming to the board to talk about new approaches to quality. They'll also be bringing the 25-26 committee work plan for your feedback and input. And we'll have our new chief benefits officer hired by that point. And they're going to be bringing the committee charter for your review and input. And that's it.
All right. And so the regulations that we just talked about, is that going to be in the regular board meeting?
Yeah, it'd be
Okay.
the regular.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any other public comment?
No more public comment.
So that means no opportunities for statements from the public. Okay, nobody else? Nobody else wants to speak? Okay. Shucks, okay. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and your participation.
Darn, we're done? Is that what you're?